My friend's cousin. There's nothing scarier than an empty house. When I was just a kid, my parents would leave me alone. I'd often end the night curled up on the couch in tears, paralyzed by the thought that the creaking I had heard from above might be an intruder with eyes to kill. I never told my parents how scared I would get, because I certainly didn't want them to bring back the babysitter. After all, if I was old enough for them to trust on my own, I didn't need someone to look after me like a baby. I still had my pride. I never liked the idea of moving into a place on my own, so I've always had roommates. In college, I shared a dorm room as a freshman, then moved into a house off campus with 3 friends through senior year. When I moved to the city, I found a pair of roommates on Craigslist, which was still more comforting to me than living alone, believe it or not. The idea of having someone else around is just reassuring, you know? It wasn't until I moved out of that apartment and into my last place that the story really begins. A friend of mine had a cousin who was moving to the city and looking for someone to live with. I thought we'd be a perfect match. I was ready to get a nicer place after a promotion and didn't want to have to find roommates on Craigslist again. Once is enough. So, Danny and I signed a lease for a 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment in a 5-story walk-up building that may or may not have met code. But the place was incredible. Our bedrooms were bigger than most of my friends' living rooms in the city, and our living room was twice the size of that. The kitchen had all brand new appliances and countertops, but best of all was the size. So much room for cooking activities. Sure, the windows were a little bit drafty and the insulation was non-existent come winter, but the place was beautiful. Plus, we lived on the first floor, so walking up 5 stories multiple times a day was not quite the concern for us as it was our neighbors. I think, under different circumstances, Danny and I would have gotten along great. She really was a nice girl. An absolute slob, but a nice girl. Danny met a guy pretty early on, which provided a little initial relief for our apartment's cleanliness. But not for long. He ended up being just as bad as she was, leaving the dishes out, cooked food in the pans, letting the trash overflow, little hairs from shaving in the sink, and piss all over the toilet seat, all of the time. This is what I got for moving in with my friend's cousin. At first, I'd put up with it and clean up after her, but enough was enough. I started calling her out on her mess. This didn't go well. Danny got very defensive, often blaming the messes on me, saying that she was at the movies or something so the dishes couldn't be hers, or that her boyfriend never pissed with the seat down, so the crusty yellow drops couldn't have come from her. We fought about this a lot, and soon started spending as much time away from each other and out of the house as possible. For a few months, I spent a lot of nights at my boyfriend's apartment, and she did the same. There would be times that we would go a couple weeks without even crossing paths. Even when I was home and did hear her come through the door, I'd stay in my room and she'd go straight to hers. We couldn't even look at each other without fighting for a stretch. This solved the problem of the fighting, but not the mess she'd leave behind when she did hang around our place. More importantly, it raised another problem that I didn't like all too much. I'd have the apartment to myself far more than I was comfortable with. This got much worse when I broke up with my boyfriend. Now I stayed at the apartment 100% of the time, and she stayed maybe 2 to 3 nights a week. I tried spending as much time as I could at happy hours after work or out with friends at bars, but I always came home to an obscenely large apartment in an ancient building with creepy sounds and no one to distract my attention. I would hear the worn-down hardwood floors creak and just stare at my bedroom door from my bed for minutes at a time, terrified that someone was on the other side. I would hear the winter wind whipping the trash through the alley and freeze my eyes locked on the window, knowing that someone was there in the blackness of the shadows. I'm really not a big scaredy cat, but there's something about being alone in a big place that makes me tense. One night, just before New Year's, it was getting bad. Every little sound I had convinced myself was a footstep sneaking around the apartment, or the front door opening, or the plates tapping against one another in the sink, waiting to be cleaned. So I decided to distract myself. I don't know how the apartment got to be such a mess again, but that night I decided I was going to make it spotless, so the next time Danny came back and made a mess, I could call her out right there and then. I turned up some music and went to town. First the kitchen, and then the bathroom, then the living room, then I finished off with my bedroom. It was spotless. I could move out there and then and get my full security deposit back. It looked so pristine. It was about 11:15 when I popped out to a bar around the corner to grab a drink with Danny's cousin, my friend who had originally set us up. We were on our second beer when he mentioned something that caught me a bit off guard. So, Danny told me she's been living with Chris for the past month. It's really not working out, huh? Yeah, pretty much. She only spends like a few nights each week, if that. It's almost like I have the place to myself. No? She said she's literally been living with him. She moved a bunch of her clothes there because you guys kept fighting, and she hasn't been in your apartment for a full month. My heart froze, just for a split second, but long enough for all my deepest fears to run through my head. But then I considered reality, and she's been making a mess of her stuff all month, even if just a day here or there. Danny's cousin agreed that surely Danny was exaggerating. I don't have multiple personalities. At least I don't think. I was a bit tipsy when I got home, and it was pretty late. I tossed my scarf and coat in the closet and quickly escaped into the bathroom to relieve myself from the night of fun. I turned the light on and looked down, and there was piss on the seat. I was furious. I made that apartment shinier than Mr. Clean's head, and the first thing Danny does when she gets home is drop her fresh piss all over the seat. I stormed out of the bathroom and screamed, "Damn it, Danny!" as I marched to her room and swung the door open with authority, and she wasn't there. She must have come home to grab a fresh set of clothes and took a pit stop to ruin my night. She wasn't getting away with this. I picked up my phone and called her. According to our call history, this was going to be our first chat since before Thanksgiving, but it was going to be a doozy. I was ready to rip into her. When she picked up the phone, I barely gave her a chance to say hello. "God damn it, Danny, I cleaned the whole damn apartment and you pissed on the toilet seat again." "Wait, what?" "You pissed on the toilet seat. It's still fresh. I cleaned the whole damn apartment before I went out tonight, and now you pissed on the toilet seat again." "Dude, I've been up at the mountain all week with Chris. I've been in a cabin all night. I sure as hell didn't piss on your stupid toilet seat. I haven't even been to the apartment since Thanksgiving because you've been such an ass, and this just proves my point. After the new year, I am moving out." She went on for a while, but I couldn't move. I cut her off. "You're at the mountain?" This time, the footsteps didn't sound sneaky at all, and the door slammed on the way out.